your detergent exploded.
It was always my intention to launch fragrance outside your traditional medium.
You were the first to do that.
He told me, good news is you're profitable. The bad news is you're going to collapse and you cannot sustain.
Carina Chaz,
Yes.
are you ready to dream bigger?
I'm ready. I love it.
Okay, so you launched your brand at age 21, which is, I think, a pretty ballsy move because normally at that age, people are like scrambling to get their first job out of college. How did you even get started at 21?
So there was a series of events that ultimately led to DedCool. And when we talk about launch, you know, the brand has had many iterations, different phases. And it really came together in a very unique and organic way. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, I come from a background in beauty. My mom is a formulator, and
formulator for what? Like just beauty brands or perfume specifically?
Not perfumes, more like bath products.
Cool.
So I grew up, my parents are both immigrants. They met on Los Angeles Street, which I think is hilarious. They ultimately met, and my mom had this grand plan of making soaps and lotions, and it started in her kitchen. So she comes from, like, born on a farm. Everything from the farm she used and cultivated her, you know, young adult life, and these were just values that she passed on to me. But obviously when you're a young person, you resist the things that your parents teach you. So I came from a very like hippy dippy background. My mom's store in the 80s was next to the original Erewhon.
Wow.
Which was like a juice bar, and it wasn't like obviously what Erewhon is today. But ultimately they started manufacturing their own products in a very small space in West Adams. So that facility was ultimately where I was raised, from like after school activities to summer vacation. And when I talk about their business, it's very different from the business that DedCool is today. They, again, and you know, there's so much conversation around marketing and media and how much just business has changed. But their focus was more B2B, and it was very small. Like there had only been 2 people working there, and they serviced a very niche clientele. And I remember my mom having the conversation with me, I think I was 10, and she's like, one day this will be yours. And I was like, that's cool, but I don't care about soap or lotion. So it was really servicing like back bar for hotel and spas. And what always drew me were the scent profiles. And from a young age, I started playing, and from a young age, like 10, 13, 16, I started playing with fragrance profiles. And that really meant essential oils and more of like organic extracts. And as a young person, I started exploring this idea of identity. I remember it was 7th grade. All of my friends were wearing the pink sugar fragrance. And it's so funny because I can smell that scent from a mile away. And I remember thinking it's so interesting and cool that someone can wear something that's expressive on their identity, who they are. And it wasn't that fragrance for me, but I admired the vehicle of scent and how, you know, people utilized it as a tool of self-expression. And that's really where I started playing with, you know, lotions, potions, different scent profiles, and they were definitely not anything to write home about. So I'm a self-taught perfumer, and really, again, a lot of trial and error. And the scents, you know, I'm talking about 2007 to 2012 were basically made for me to share with my friends. And they were like in little bottles. There was nothing to it. There was no brand. I went away to school my freshman year of college, and I remember thinking to myself, 1, I don't want to be here. 2, I feel like I'm taking steps backwards instead of forwards. And came back to Los Angeles, went to community college, then enrolled in a 4-year, and all of my friends were still at university, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And this is really where I spent a bulk of my time and energy on creating what DedCool was then is today. And the concept was really about creating genderless fragrances, because as a young person, and again, we're talking about 21, you're in college, there's like so much of yourself where you're exploring for the first time, and I always call it a coming of age. And it was really these more androgynous scents that were always marketed towards men and not specifically women. And from this kind of clean, organic upbringing that I had, there was no true conversation around clean fragrance. So at this point, you know, I'd had my experience in making little fragrances here and there, and I just created a concept in a very like grassroots way. It started on Instagram, and this was 2016. Started on Instagram. There were no bottles, there was no packaging, there was only a scent. And I think it was maybe a few months after I had this Instagram page, and it was really just like a vibes page. Nasty Gal, and this again was like in the height of Nasty Gal, had reached out to me via DM and said, we love this concept, we would love samples. And
so wait, the vibe page, were you saying anything about a perfume?
It was more of like concepts of like think of like Tumblr. It was kind of like a Tumblr page. So it was like moody photos of like things I found on the internet.
Yep.
And the info or the bio was like genderless, non-toxic fragrances for like every mood, or you know, whatever I said back then. And yeah, there wasn't like packaging or anything. And they had reached out to me. They were like, we want samples. And at this point I'm scrambling, because I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like I made it. Yeah. I don't even know, like I don't even have a product, and people are interested. And Nasty Gal was like the mecca of all things cool. And I remember calling bottle companies, which is why our bottles are the bottles they are today, because we had no money for inventory, no money for marketing, no money for anything outside of basically samples that then, you know, sold on consignment, reinvested into building the inventory. But I called bottle companies. I basically like did this very fragmented, you know, Photoshop screen print, and I got the bottles for free, which was great because I told them I was a fragrance brand, wanted to start my own line, and got them screen printed for like $30 each. Had the juice, filled the juice, and then basically got boxes again from like a sample supplier. And I put this presentation together. I had my mom drive me to downtown LA, and I remember specifically getting in the elevator, and there was a button to the penthouse that said like Nasty Gal instead of a number, and I was like freaking out. This is the coolest thing that had ever happened to me. Pressed the button, dropped it off at the reception, and then went home. A week later, my dad, he gives me like little clippings of newspaper articles, and it was like Nasty Gal bankrupt, out of business, and I was devastated because I thought to myself, my one shot of doing this and like making something cool and unique was tarnished. And then I then took a step back and realized, you know, if Nasty Gal was interested, then other people would be interested, and it gave me the confidence to keep trucking along in a very small, obviously nimble way. So when we talk about DedCool launching in 21, it was me going to stores and knocking on doors and asking for my product to be on consignment, and ultimately the product was really well received. And then we started getting actual purchase orders, and those purchase orders allowed me to reinvest the profit into making more fragrance.
So what was the first fragrance that you created?
So the first fragrance I ever created was our fragrance. So some of the fragrances that I made at a very early age still live within the collection. My first fragrance was the milk fragrance.
Yeah.
And that is a scent that lives within all of our DedCool fragrances. So it creates unison between all of the scents. And milk is really this kind of like layering, second skin. It's perfect for everyone. Some people can smell it, some people can't. So there's this whole thing about people and nose blindness and musk, but if you can smell it's unforgettable. And that came later in the collection. I didn't quite have the confidence that people could understand the fragrance. And ultimately, when the brand gained a little bit of traction, people could identify that scent. So we launched that, I think it was 2020. But the first two fragrances that officially launched with DedCool were fragrance number 1, Taunt, and that I made when I was 13, and it's still a best-selling fragrance within the collection. And then fragrance 2, a lot of people don't know, but that was kind of the mold and the original DedCool scent. And that was like, I was 21, which is hilarious. Like, I think of it as a fever dream. I was going out to clubs. I was wearing leather and sweating until 3 in the morning, something I would never do today. But it's so interesting to see, again, it's the evolution of my life and how I cultivated these scents through these very personal moments. And to now understand that, you know, we touch people across the world with our fragrance is really cool.
It's super cool. And also, I think like perfume is this thing where certain perfumes always remind me of certain parts of my life. And so it must be so cool as someone who's creating those perfumes. Like you're talking about, you know, creating scent number 2 when you were 21 and going to the clubs and, you know, wearing leather and all of these things. It's like a different part of your life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's funny because at this point, the process has changed a bit. I have to, you know, comply with our big box retailers and, you know, work with what the consumers want, which is always fun. I always, you know, for us, and we talk about this all the time, whenever there's a specific trend in fragrance, we always kind of gear our own way. And it's staying true to the brand. It's staying true to, you know, myself as a brand founder and leader of the organization. But it's definitely fun, but it's changed for sure.
So Nasty Gal bankrupt, then what happens? Like you start going to all of these places. Do you remember like the first big moment you had?
Those big moments came later because I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't have a plan. Like there was no world where I thought I was going to graduate college. I'm going to be a founder and CEO. This was just like my passion project hobby that ultimately led me to each next step. It was like, okay, the stores are liking it. So now they're buying product as opposed to holding it on consignment.
What was the first store that took you guys in?
It was a store. It's no longer around, which is so sweet. It was called like Green Beauty something on Melrose. Do you know where Lucifer's Pizza is?
Yes.
It was right there before they expanded. And I remember the woman was, I mean, it was a mixed bag. Some people were really excited and really impressed. And, you know, I'm like 10 years younger. I'm nervous. I'm insecure. I'm sweating. I'm like giving product to people. And some people were like, this sucks. Or some people were like, you're so cute. This is so cool. I'm going to give you a chance. And ultimately, those people who gave me a chance, you know, I hold on to those moments forever. And I have a lot of gratitude. But it was funny thinking back, it was like Barney's was my North Star.
Yeah.
And so DedCool cultivated 2016, 2017, 2018. I'm still like cold calling, walking into different stores. At this point, I think we had invested in some type of digital marketing. Again, like very, very small because the brand just had, it was funny. We were profitable. I had no idea because the model was not anything that was a model we could look at today.
Yeah.
But I mean, big moments, like there were trunk shows. I always joke that the moment I know I made it is when I showed up to these events or, you know, brand community, whatever it is. I made it because I don't have to set up. I don't have to tear down, which I'm sure, you know, a lot of brand founders have had their moment.
That's like the beginning stages of any brand. You are doing all of it.
Oh, yeah.
All on your own.
Yes. No, DedCool was a one-woman show until 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Which was crazy. Like, we had some people here and there, little, like, fractional support. And when we think about, you know, photos on set or any marketing collateral, I was so scared to spend any money. I would give the photographer $500 and like my hand would be in the shot and we're having this whole photo shoot in my apartment.
Yeah.
And
You have to be scrappy at the beginning, though, for sure.
Yeah. It's hard because I still have this very scrappy mindset. And it's like, we're a funded brand. We're a profitable brand. We have an Erewhon smoothie. Like, I really need to get out of this nimble, scrappy mindset. But I think that those early days of one being scared to spend any money and investing outside of anything, you know, that didn't have a clear return, led us to profitability at a really early stage and allowed us to get a great deal. And when we fundraised, we didn't have to raise a lot of money. We self-sustained and, you know, we got our pick of the litter and we have a fantastic group behind us. And it's hard. It's competitive. You know, I always think even today I go into Sephora and I remember walking into Sephora for the first time and seeing it was nude sticks. I don't know if you know Taylor.
Yes, Taylor's a good friend. I'm seeing her actually for dinner this Saturday.
Oh, I love Taylor. Yeah. I was just on the phone with her. I remember seeing nude sticks for the first time and it was in Sephora and this was in like 2016. And I thought to myself, that is so big and that is so huge. This is such a big accomplishment and, you know, how can I do this one day? And now exactly to your point, it's like Taylor's a very dear friend of mine. We talk all the time. Like, she's a confidant. And it's just so interesting how life just takes you into new phases. But it definitely wasn't easy.
No, it never is. I've not spoken yet to one founder who's been like, yeah, that was so easy.
Yeah. There's a playbook, but you know, you have to have those like growing pains for sure.
So talk to me about becoming profitable. And I love hearing founders say that they switched to profitability and, you know, they grew like that, because I think for a long time, CPG was following the tech world model where it was like, you know, grow at all costs, raise money, be unprofitable. And that kind of switched, I would say, in the last couple of years, whereby CPG brands aren't getting those tech valuations anymore if they're raising, especially if they're not profitable.
Right.
And, you know, investors and strategics want to see a healthy business. So talk to me about that decision. Was that something that was important to you right from the get-go?
It's hard because when I talk about the early days of DedCool, it's going back to there was no business plan, no business model. It was really, I'm sorry, I have to.
No, go for it. I've been sipping away.
I have a tickle. You know, I always say that we were profitable accidentally because again, like I was just so scared to spend any money. And even in the early days, like we talk about DedCool not being a real brand until 2020. And that's when we became an incorporated company. That's when, you know, we saw real traction and ultimately we were growing year over year, but we had no business model. We had no financial plan. Again, it was just a one-woman show. And I remember calling my CPA. This had been when we launched detergent, and this was in 2020. It was March 15th, 2020, so when the world closed. And everything just took off, and it was crazy and fast and exciting and scary all at the same time. I remember calling my CPA, and at this point, I was so burnt out. And there's different phases of being burnt out. I felt trapped in a way where I didn't quite know my next move. And I remember having the conversation of, hey, I know this is growing. I know we have something. I don't know how much I can invest. I don't know if I can hire people. I don't have the skill set and the financial background to make these decisions confidently. And he was like, I don't know how to help you. I just do your taxes, but I might know someone who can. He then introduced me to my now CFO. I remember getting the call. We had a great conversation, and he was like, I'll send you a proposal. I'll build out your financials, your model, whatever you need. I said, sure. He sent me the proposal. I remember it was $7,000, and I nearly collapsed. I had never spent anything over than $500 outside of inventory. And I was like, don't ever call me again. I don't want to hear from you. This is absurd. I will be fine on my own. And at that point, DedCool kept growing, and I was still having the same frustrations and obviously insecurities. And I remember he called me back, and I had looked for his number, but I think I deleted it because I was so offended by the proposal. And he called me, and he's like, just wanted to check in how it's all going. And I was like, thank God you called. I don't care. I'll spend the money. Just tell me what I need to do and how I can reinvest our inventory. And at this point, we did the project. This was 2021.
Mm-hmm.
He told me, good news is, like, you've reached over, a certain few $1 million mark, and you're profitable. The bad news is you're going to collapse and you cannot sustain. And I am going to help you. And we've been together since 2021. And from there, I mean, we've grown. It's just crazy to think of the business at that stage to where it is today. And we were able to reinvest. We were profitable thanks to my nimble mentality. And we ultimately ended up raising money at the end of 2022, a very, very small check from a quite notable beauty private equity group. And, we saw a huge trajectory. We saw exciting projections. And again, even today, I have pinch me moments of like, I can't believe this is my life and I get to do what I love. And this little thing that I was like so confidently, but wasn't so sure about, really just came to life. In we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. Ultimately, every brand does. But yeah, there was profitability.
If you could go back to yourself, like before you hired your CFO, would you tell her to do it sooner?
I want to say no. I think those moments were super valuable.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it would have gained the same result. But there are plenty of things I wish I didn't do or wish I invested in sooner. Again, every brand founder does. But in that specific moment, I don't think so.
Yeah. We just hired our CFO, which is late considering the scale of brand that we are. We just kind of worked with an accountant and someone to do like the P&L, like projections and all of that. It is the most life-changing hire of all time.
It is.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I was like, what were we even?
I know.
How are we doing this? I mean, it's just my co-founder is like in charge. He overlooks the finances, but I was like, this has literally given you back like
I know
10, 15 hours a week.
Yeah. No,
like it's a game changer.
It's amazing. And, for me, again, this is my first rodeo. To surround myself with people who have done this before, it's a gift. Yeah, it's a gift. And they empower you. And I want to surround myself with people who are better than me.
1,000%.
I've grown so much throughout this journey, and I wouldn't be where I'm at today without the people surrounding me. So
100%. Okay. So you talked about in 2020 was when the brand really started to take off, and you launched detergent. And I feel like your detergent exploded. And I was actually in the car with my assistant, and she was like, the DedCool detergent is amazing. And it's literally, I have not heard one bad thing about it. Okay. So
I brought you one.
I'm so excited. So excited. So what made you decide to launch detergent? Because it makes sense. Like now when I think about it, I'm like, oh, it's like a scent story. But when you were the first to do that, to go from like perfumes into detergents, it's so smart.
Thank you. No, again, DedCool is really about innovation, and not only as a consumer, but as a brand founder, for me, the opportunity is really understanding a white space. And it was always my intention to launch fragrance outside your traditional mediums, because scent is so powerful and there's so many ways to experience it. And right now there's a huge fragrance boom, and I'm actually super thankful for this because for the
Scent
first
Talk,
time,
I live on it. I'm so obsessed with it.
No, it's the best. Perfume Talk is amazing. TikTok has been such a driver. And again, we can't really compare to our competitors at this point. We're all kind of working within the same space, but DedCool is all about a lifestyle that's scented and expanded, and again, beyond these traditional values that for so long shaped the category, and that's luxury, that's scarcity. And for me as a consumer, fragrance is very representative of who I am, how I feel, what I'm wearing, and I wanted to extend that to my consumer, and that wasn't quite the conversation. And to me, laundry felt like a really easy extension, one, as a more out of the box idea, and two, like as a utilitarian play, because for me, if I'm not using DedCool's detergent, I'm using unscented detergent, and I want my fragrance to complement my life, and that means my clothes and my home. And it's funny because now it feels so normal, but exactly to your point, I mean, I remember in the early days I had an advisor who was like a big beauty executive, and anything she said, I was like, yes, you're absolutely right. I remember telling her that I wanted to launch a laundry detergent, and her first response was absolutely no one will trust you to wash their clothes. And it more so inspired me to make a really good formula, and a formula that we own and that my mom actually formulated. And the quality is fantastic. The packaging is fantastic. Everything about it is a great product that ultimately smells good. So everything about it checks the boxes, and we wanted to create, again, this more expansive piece of fragrance and how it's not really spoken about until this point.
Well, also, I think our parents' generation maybe thought of things like household cleaning supplies as like its own bucket. And then, perfume is just like in the beauty bucket. But I think our generation is a little bit different. It kind of all bleeds into one another.
100%.
Like even I'm so particular about the hand soap and the dish soap that I use.
Yeah.
And it's from the same brand. So they sit beside each other on my kitchen counter area.
Which brand is it?
Home Court.
Yeah, I love Home Court.
They're so fabulous.
Yeah, and it's like these everyday moments with this like scented experience.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what we aim to do. And it's a great product, and it looks beautiful.
Exactly.
And it's like,
and that's the thing. Like I talk about this a lot. I think for me, given my schedule and how busy life is, I do also really value the times where I get to slow down, and sometimes that involves like household chores and like cooking. When I have the time, I'll do that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like the romanticization of that portion of things is so important, and it sounds silly maybe to some people, but for me, I love having nice cleaning supplies in my home, like things that I like are aesthetic, and it smells nice, and there's this experience that goes with it. And I feel like laundry should be no different.
Oh yeah, there's nothing more I dislike than doing laundry, and this gives me kind of like this fun purpose of having this like scented moment. And it's so cheesy, and people make fun of me all the time, but I will be like doing the laundry, whatever, put it away, put a workout shirt on, a week later, and I just keep smelling myself, and I'm like, it smells so good.
Yeah.
And I hate being that person. And they're like, okay, we get it, like you made it, but it's not really that. It's more of like, this is a real life moment that's happening in real time, and that's what the whole point is.
1,000%.
Give these real time moments and have them be fun.
So when you did launch detergent, what happens? Like, did your audience just like go for it right away? What was the reception?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, again, it was the day that the world shut down for COVID. So
wow,
everyone was really
well, I mean, good time to launch laundry detergent. People were probably in their house. Like,
exactly. Now we can obviously attest to that. I remember obviously when everything happened, and again, there was so much unknown. People didn't know what to do.
I mean, listen, we launched Array same time.
Yeah.
And now I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, everyone was bloated and anxious, and there
Right.
we were, like perfect timing. But when you're
Exactly.
going through it, you're like,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You have no idea. So it was a little, I mean, I think the first 2 days were slow to start, and then the orders started coming in, and at that point we had our own fulfillment and we couldn't have people in the facility, so we had kind of this like separated work schedule, and we had to do it really quietly. And I think the mandate was, what was it, for like only essentials, and I was like, okay, well, you know, we're just gonna consider laundry as an essential good.
I mean,
and
it definitely is.
with it.
How do you not wash your clothes?
Right.
That's essential in my books.
I 100% agree. So yeah, we got very lucky for sure. But yes, the laundry was a hit.
And so then which one did you start out with? Was it just one? Because then you did this collaboration with Way, which I remember seeing that and I was like, this founder is smart. I didn't know who you were, but I'm like, this person is smart, whoever's behind the scenes here, because that was a very smart collaboration that you did.
Well, it was a very organic collaboration. The founder of Way, you know, Jen, I've always looked up to Jen. She's an amazing person, mentor, and there was a woman who's now the CEO of Way, was a DedCool fan, and she absolutely loved our laundry detergent, and we had talked about this for years, and at one point it was so like casual, let's just make this happen, and we didn't really know what would come of it, and it's been one of the most successful launches and collaborations I've seen within the beauty world. So
wow.
I'm very thankful to Way, because it opened up a lot of, you know, consumers for us and credibility, and I'll always be thankful to their team, and you know, they're all lovely. We absolutely love working with them. It's really just a fun, you know, sometimes partnerships are tough, but Way has been nothing but amazing, and we want to keep on creating with them.
I also think that it's such a smart partnership. So we're really intentional about partnerships. And Nish and I, Nish is my husband and co-founder, we always talk about like what a successful partnership is. And it really is like when both brands have something really unique to bring to the table, and there's less bleeding of audiences, so it really is like an introduction to both brands of like something new, like the audiences to something new essentially. And I think that that's what you guys really did, because I think Way got your like very like, you have a very cool young, like like I would say cool and young audience, and you kind of got exposure to their audience. I mean, they're a little bit of an older brand, and so I think it was just so smartly done.
Yeah, no, it was so well received. Whenever, I mean, we sold out within a few days, and we had 3 months of inventory. We then relaunched it. We then relaunched it again. Then we relaunched another scent. We had a bunch of community events, and I mean, right now it's sold out. People are like hassling us to bring it back, and you know, parents, friends, people I know, they're like, when the heck is this coming back, because I can't live without it. And again, like, you know, it's so funny that you say all of your partnerships have been very intentional. I wish, it's not to say that we didn't have the same strategy. We were just more so of like, it's a small beauty community, we have so many friends. Like, I love co-branding. I think it's one of the things that we've done well. It's never overly thought out. At this point it will be, and it has to be, and as we grow, as we scale, we have to be really, really thoughtful with every approach, every, you know, road we go on. And ultimately that was, again, a very organic, very fast kind of turn of events that really, really took our brand to a different level.
What are your tips for building such a strong community? Because people love you guys, and you have a very kind of loyal and dedicated community that you've built, and you clearly have like such a unique voice.
You know, it's interesting because there's this piece of DedCool that you can't deny it's there, and it's, yes, it's a founder-led brand, but the brand is an extension of me, and I feel like this like social media and this digital age have been so impactful for brand awareness, building brands today. You can have real life moments, real life touch points, real life conversations with brands, consumers in a way that brands have never been able to in the past. Some of our best selling products come from community asks. And anytime we do IRL, it's so amazing to see the response and the feeling, and people come up to me and thank me, and I don't think about it like that. I'm like, I'm grinding, I'm tired, I have gray hairs, and then people will drive from miles and miles away, and they're like, your scent touched me in a way that I've never been able to experience a scent like this before. And we bring those moments to life by highlighting our consumer, talking to them, whether that is in real life or whether that is digitally. And we want to meet the consumer where they're at, and everyone wants to have their point of view. Everyone wants to feel seen. And for us, without the community, without the trust, without the word of mouth, I mean, that's our biggest, which is very difficult to scale, our biggest opportunity for, again, brand awareness, halo building. But it's like the feeling that they get when they use our products are things that they hold so close to them, and they share that with us, and then we do whatever we can to continuously build that. So
I think it really is, though, like the personability of a brand. I think these days that's kind of what the consumer values. And you're right, it's difficult to scale, but the brands that I've seen who have continued to be successful are who still feel that way, and like DedCool has struck me as like still a very like community-led brand, and like one that feels personable. I really think that those are the brands that are going to win right now in this day and age,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, it's like beauty consumer, it doesn't have to be so stuffy and serious. And
no,
it's like, I'm a millennial, but I'm gravitating towards more of like a fun kind of easy, again, like not so serious product. And it's just like, why does it all have to be so serious?
Yeah. And I think that our generation, and I'm like using "our" very loosely, but I really do feel it's like obviously like Gen Z, but also that goes into, I'm a millennial, and I feel that way as well, where it's like it shouldn't be so serious, and there should still be fun and accessibility. And that was our thing with Array as well, that like, yes, we're building supplements, but it needs to be fun, and it needs to feel like you're understanding what it is, and it shouldn't feel so like snooty that a brand is making you feel bad about yourself.
Of course. And that's definitely a strategy, and it works. Luxury is right now at the height. But again, you have to stay true to your brand and the foundation it's built on. And for us, it is this like playful, wearable, everyday. And exactly to your point, it's like we're both millennials, but there's this Gen Z value that I think lives within a lot of us. And I always use my mom as the example. She loves her high-end skincare, whatever it may be, but she's buying the smiley face slippers from Instagram because, again, it's not that serious. Yes. Like, she's fun, she's playful, and she can play in both. And I think DedCool, your brand, a lot of these brands that, we stand alongside is about that, and like a celebration of your own unique individuality. And that's all we aim to do.
I love that. Tell everyone where they can find you. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, no. So we're in quite a few places. We have DedCool.com. We are live on Amazon, which has been an amazing channel. Are you on Amazon?
Yes. I'm obsessed. I was very resistant at first, but I'm obsessed with Amazon.
No, Amazon's amazing. It's growing really fast. And Sephora and Erewhon. Today's our last day for an Erewhon smoothie. We will come back with another one, but we definitely had a really fun 3-month run with Erewhon. And yeah.
What's your Instagram? What's the brand's Instagram?
My Instagram is Carina Chaz, Carina with a C, and DedCool, DedCool.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.